Well, Republican candidates, they are running out of time to catch up to Donald Trump in the Iowa caucuses. Now, with less than 1 week until the first contest of the presidential race, Nikki Haley has moved into second place in brand new Fox News Power Rankings. Bill Malhusian is live in Waukee, Iowa. Hi, Bill.
Hey, Dana, good morning to you. Well, Nikki Haley's been moving up in the polling as well, and because of that, she's getting a much bigger target on her back. Just yesterday alone, both the Trump camp and the DeSantis camp released new attack ads against her. Here's part of one of them. Take a listen.
We don't need to talk about them as criminals. They're not.
Illegals are criminals, Nikki. That's what illegal means.
So that was from the Trump super PAC MAGA Inc. Attacking her on immigration. They spent about $1.3 million to air this in New Hampshire. That is where Nikki Haley has been polling very strongly in recent days. Some new polls coming out recently showing she might be within single digits of Trump in the state. That attack ad went after her, saying she is, quote, too weak, too liberal to fix the southern border. Well, Haley responded to Trump last night during the Fox News town hall. Take a listen.
My response is, why did Obama sue me for passing one of the toughest illegal immigration laws in the country? Look, just because President Trump says something doesn't make it true. But he's lying about it. And I'll tell you the reason he's lying about it is because he's taking snippets of things I said. I said you shouldn't just do the border wall. You have to do more than that.
And regarding that attack ad, the Trump campaign released this statement to Fox News saying in part, quote, President Trump has long said he'd train his sights on whomever is number 2 in the race. Rob DeSanctimonious is approaching single digits everywhere, and his campaign is on life support, which means it's Nikki Haley's turn in the barrel, end quote. As for Governor DeSantis, his campaign is also attacking Nikki Haley as part of a $2 million ad buy. They also unleashed a new ad against her, essentially saying she has been insulting Iowans, and they say that she is, quote, Wall Street funded. That ad will be playing in Cedar Rapids, Davenport, and the Des Moines area. And back out here live, the weather continues to get worse. We've been talking about it all week. Caucus night, weather expected to dip as low as -5 degrees. So we'll see if everybody turns out that night.
Bill Malhusian, you're a long way from Eagle Pass, Texas, but you look great. We'll see you there on Saturday.
Yes, thank you.
It's like a snow day for most kids today. Dana, I want to give our viewers a sense about what numbers you look at come Monday night. We went back in history. We tried to figure out among Democrats and Republicans, what do you look for? These are the Democratic candidates with the highest percentage of the vote in a caucus that was contested. So they had some competition. Tom Harkin from Iowa, 76%. Al Gore beat Bill Bradley with 63%. Jimmy Carter over Ted Kennedy, almost 60%. That's among Democrats. Contested caucuses over Iowa going back 3.5 decades, all right? This is what we found with Republicans now. George Bush in 2000, 41%. Bob Dole won by about 12.5 points in 1988, all right? You see the numbers there? Democrats were well above 50%. All Republicans were well below 50%. And this was our poll from last month, mid-December, Fox Business. This is where we have Donald Trump at 52%, easily dwarfing the number of Ron DeSantis at 18% and Nikki Haley at 16%. So when you're watching on Monday night, it's going to be a big story as to whether or not Trump gets above or below 50%. We'll see how that goes. Let's get to it. Stephen Law, Senate Leadership Fund President, and Philippe Reines, former Hillary Clinton advisor. And gentlemen, good day to both of you. Stephen, Nikki Haley seems to be making a move here. How do you see it? Is it significant enough for Monday?
I think there are two things that are increasingly obvious. One is that Donald Trump has continued to have a commanding lead in the polls. He's got an impregnable base. He's also effectively an incumbent. He's got a very experienced team who are helping him capitalize on all that. And at the same time, you're also seeing, as you note, Nikki Haley seeming to make a move. You can see that in part by the behavior of her two main competitors, the former president and Governor DeSantis. And as you know, so much of this is about expectations. If Nikki Haley does better than expected in Iowa or in New Hampshire, that could change the trajectory of things. Or if Donald Trump simply seems to put it away, that also could have an impact. But at least those two factors seem to be the dynamics heading into Iowa and New Hampshire.
I think what you say about expectations is a point well taken. And Philippe, I don't know what you think about that, but if this number for Trump is not greater than 50%, is that considered a disappointment? I mean, how is that going to be interpreted?
I don't know. I mean, I've been watching, media for enough years to know that there's going to be a couple of storylines coming out of Iowa. The first is the winner, but the second and third bigger ones are probably the surprise and then the one who's buried by Iowa. If everything happens according to plan, Nikki Haley is the surprise, and Ron DeSantis is this is the nail in his coffin. Anything that deviates from that, and I don't know what the numbers are. Sure, if Donald Trump were to pull 45% and Nikki Haley were to pull 35%, I think the story would be that she's much stronger than need be. But, looking at the charts that you were showing, it's important to note most of those people didn't become president. If I did my math right, only 43% of Iowa caucus winners went on to become the Republican nominee. So while it's the first sort of rubber hitting the road in the horse race, long term, it's not dispositive, or probably isn't dispositive.
Fair enough point on that. Stephen Law, there is polls and stories being written about African-American voters now and how they're not drawn to Joe Biden. Here's Jim Clyburn. I mean, he really led the way almost 4 years ago in South Carolina for Joe Biden. Watch.
How worried are you about black voters showing up for President Biden in November?
I'm not worried. I'm very concerned. I have no problem with the Biden administration and what it has done. My problem is that we have not been able to break through that MAGA wall.
To both of you gentlemen, and Stephen, you can start, is this story legitimate or is it overblown right now? Do we even know?
Yeah, I don't know that we know for sure. Obviously, Congressman Clyburn understands his constituency almost more than anybody else, and he was the person who really helped Joe Biden break through with black voters when he was first running in 2016. I don't think that black voters are going to change dramatically in terms of their political allegiance, but he's probably right that they're not enthusiastic and they're not inclined to show up absent some significant effort by the Biden administration. But I don't know that it's so much of a failure to communicate. That was essentially his diagnosis. I think the problem that he has is the problem that Joe Biden has with most voters right now, and that is that people perceive him as too old. They perceive him as not up to the job. They perceive that Bidenomics, which is a brand that the president created for himself, is not working for most people. They can't afford a car, let alone a house, and they can barely afford to pay their credit card bills. And I think that's the dynamic that's causing people to lose interest in this president, what he's doing for the country.
Got it. Thank you for that. Philippe, I want to get you an answer on here, too. I was just thinking about the Jamie Dimon interview that we just shared a few moments ago. I mean, if he's right, the economy goes south, those voters are going to be more sore.
Well, as much as I respect Jamie Dimon as being the preeminent voice on Wall Street of what's coming, I hope he's wrong. And I think, to go back to your question, that it's important to note that Joe Biden at the moment, according to the latest polls, is enjoying 71% of the black vote. Now, yes, that is a slip from the more dominating numbers that Hillary Clinton enjoyed in 2016 and that Joe Biden did in 2020. I don't think it's the bottom falling out, although I don't know the difference between worry and concerned. In a year where it is likely to be tight as a tick, where the last two election cycles have been decided by about 40,000 voters, which is smaller than the smallest NFL stadium in the country, you really can't afford any kind of slippage. And the upside is that the Biden campaign knows full well that it has a lot of work to do. Namely with youth, with people under 30, and including minorities, and just in general breaking through. It's getting very tough. And there are a lot of, X factors, including, the top of the show that you had Jonathan Turley talking about the former president's various court issues and being in D.C. today for one of the hearings. All polling shows that doesn't help him with the larger universe of voters that he needs to support him to win a general election. So while Joe Biden can't rely on that and has no control over that, he just needs to get out there and do what he did on Sunday, which is go to South Carolina and go to a black church
on Monday
and tell them what he stands for.
Thank you, Philippe. Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, plenty for both sides.
And it'll have an impact down ticket as well. It'll have an impact down ticket. It's that close.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'm out of time, but thank you for yours today. Okay, appreciate it.
Great interview. And if you can't get enough, of the Iowa content, I interviewed Kellyanne Conway yesterday. It's a 20-minute podcast. She talks about the Republicans. She talks about Biden and some of the choices they've made. And I asked her a question of what am I missing that she's paying attention to. Very interesting thoughts she has on the Hispanic voter and what we are all missing going forward.
Awesome.
I'm Steve Doocy. I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.